Memphis State, where I graduated with my Bachelor of Science of Electrical Engineering degree, and also I met my wife, Jonna, who's having second thoughts back there because she's sitting way up high watching this evening. She was a native of Collierville. 5 years later, we got married here. Since then, I've been a 30-year resident here. I've raised my family here. I've invested in the community, and I've started businesses here. Oh, and by the way, I also serve as the vice chairman of Collierville Schools. I've been that since day one, enjoying this beautiful facility tonight. And if you're wondering why these chairs are so comfortable, Coach Atkin and I's size may have something to do with that. Oh, by the way, my children nor my wife attended private schools. We were publicly school educated. My children attended Collierville schools from grades 1 to 13, and we're both educated, or excuse me, all four of us have public university degrees. I'm a conservative Republican that serves with a Republican supermajority in Nashville. I say this is because I want you to understand it, because as you can tell, it's a little partisan now, and we have distinct differences between us. I'd like to give you some facts that since 2011, when the Republicans gained control of the House, over 400,000 new private sector jobs have been created in Tennessee. Unemployment has fallen to 3.5%. More Tennesseans have more jobs making more money than ever in history. This conservative fiscal strategy we employ has resulted in the lowest debt per capita in the nation. We have the lowest overall taxation of any state. We have no transportation debt because we pay for our roads with cash. And we've more than doubled our rainy day fund to almost $1 billion in reserves. We are only one of 11 states in the United States that has a AAA bond rating. And these successes have been achieved as a result of reducing taxes, rolling back regulations, and creating a business-friendly environment that makes companies want to be here. You know what? I'm glad that my opponent has distinctly contrasting views of my own. So it's going to make your decision a little bit easier when you decide who you want to vote for. Serving in the legislature has been an eye-opening experience for me because more than ever, politics has turned into a team sport. And right now, I'm happy to say my team is winning. Based upon projections, the Republicans will return to Nashville in January with our supermajority intact. And just so you know, a supermajority means that you have over 2/3 of the seats in the legislature. You say, well, why is that a big deal? Well, a supermajority not only means you control the leadership of the House, you also control the agenda as well as the debate. If we want to end debate on a matter, we can. So if this community wants to send a progressive to Nashville to represent our district, they'll merely be a voice of dissent and protest. Thus far, since winning the special election last summer, I've learned a great deal about being an effective legislator, and apparently outside observers agree. This is where I brag on myself. The Memphis Area Association of Governments named me their Legislator of the Year. In addition, the Tennessee Journal, which is a news publication that's dedicated to covering state government, named me as the top freshman legislator in the 110th General Assembly. So I've proven that I know how to represent my district. I also understand the importance that this seat has in representing all of Shelby County, not just District 95. And that brings me to Mr. Mamula's point about the piece of legislation that I carried. You know who I carried that piece of legislation for? I carried it for Mayor Jim Strickland. I carried it for the EDGE, Industrial Development Board of Shelby County. You know why I carried it? Because they needed to know that it would get approved in Nashville. Why? To allow apartment development and density to be built in areas in Midtown Memphis. That's who I support. So we don't need to play fast and loose with the facts. I was approached because Memphis needed somebody to carry their mail in a Republican General Assembly. I thought it was good, and I did it. And I know that my opponent has not lived here very long. But in 2012, I was the chairman of the 2040 Land Use Commission, which brought forth a policy of no net gain of any new apartment zoning in Collierville. Me, the chairman of that. So we're not going to play fast and loose with the facts. All you have to do is educate yourselves, and you'll see what's really going on. Thanks.
I really regret almost foregoing your opening statements. I think I'll ask a few questions. Okay. We'll start with Mr. Vaughn. At the state level, It appears Shelby County and West Tennessee always get the short end of the stick compared to Middle and East Tennessee. What are the challenges moving forward in improving the stature of West Tennessee at the state level, and how would you, if elected, address them?
Well, Tim, I don't think that necessarily we do get the short end of the stick, because what's happening in the state is every community is competing for resources from our state. It just so happens that East and Middle Tennessee are enjoying dynamic growth at the time right now, and so it seems like they have the need for the most dollars. The challenges we see at West Tennessee is that what can we do to attract the same growth that drives those dollars to come into our community? We're struggling because of workforce development. We're struggling because of business attraction. We're struggling because we're about to lose leadership in the Senate. We already lost some leadership in the House due to the unfortunate passing of my friend Ron Lawler. There's also a problem with not only gang-related crime in Memphis, but a lot of people aren't aware that in rural areas like my hometown, gang criminal activity has increased tremendously. And then on top of that, we always have the perception of the crime and danger that Memphis provides. So all of those things make it difficult and challenging for us to drive population. But state governance is nothing except a competition for resources, and until we can have the numbers that can compete, because another area that I'm concerned about is redistricting in 2020. As we lose population as compared to the growth rates in the rest of the state, our political power will continue to be diminished.
I just disagree with that. I think the infrastructure dollars are going to places like East Tennessee and Nashville. There is I think, a mega fund project out in West Tennessee that's languishing for funds right now because they're not providing enough funds to get that started. That's a huge manufacturing site which will create jobs and everything else here in West Tennessee, which is languishing because we're not getting the infrastructure dollars that we need. And I think that would be very important in representing District 95, is to improve this area of Tennessee, West Tennessee, and give those necessary infrastructure funds to these projects. Now, the question is, how much do we fight for this? We have to tell our constituents what we're doing, when we're doing it. We haven't heard anything from the legislature from Representative Vaughn over the last year. He doesn't have a Facebook account, a Twitter account, doesn't conduct town halls. We don't know whether he's fighting for infrastructure dollars or not. We need to have a legislator that communicates with the district, that makes the district understand what he's doing and why he's doing it.
Okay. This next question, Mr. Mamula, you touched on this on your opening statement, so it's fitting that we'll start with you on this question. The cost and availability of health care is a very hot topic all across our country, and especially in Tennessee. Medicaid is often at the center of the debate, and whether expanding it would improve access to affordable health care in rural areas. Do you support the expansion of Medicaid? And please elaborate on your position.
Absolutely, I support the expansion of Medicaid. We've lost, as I said earlier, $4 billion of Tennessee money by not expanding Medicaid. Now, the key rationale against expanding Medicaid would be that the federal government covers 80 to 90%. Who's going to cover the rest of the money? And I think that's been something that has been filibustered to death by the Republican Party with false facts. The Governor Haslam, who's a Republican, realized how important health care was to the rural areas. He knew that the cost that the federal government didn't cover would be covered by the hospitals, because the hospitals have an interest in opening hospitals in those rural areas. They wanted it because it would help them create demand and get profits out in the rural areas. This is a no-brainer for me. Why don't we expand Medicaid? We don't expand Medicaid because of partisan reasons. We've got to look at Medicaid and expanding it. We have over 60,000 people in Shelby County who do not have health insurance. And you look at the economies of the rural areas, as mentioned earlier, 20% of their economy was the hospitals. They no longer have those hospitals or access to health care. What happens to those people? They come over to Memphis and Shelby County, to Baptist Hospital, to Methodist Hospital, to the Med, get unreimbursed free care from those centers. Someone's paying for it. We're paying for it in our premiums. That's just how it works. They're not going to lose money without gaining money in the long run. So our premiums will also go up.
First off, this year's budget had $36 million in it for mega site infrastructure improvements. You know, as a state, we've been in this situation before. We just have to look back you know, in 1994, let's go to 1994, TennCare, which is basically Medicare expansion in our state. The budget for TennCare was $2.64 billion in 1994. In 2005, it was $8.5 billion of state revenue required, with no change in the number of participants. At that point in time, Governor Phil Bredesen commissioned a study to study Medicare, and it turned out that they realized that it was not a viable system. But given the fact that he is required by constitutional mandate to balance our state's budget, he began allocating funds away from roads and public education and throwing them at TennCare, until finally he gave up when they cut 190,000 Tennesseans' health care benefits because they were all part of a failed program. Now then, he robbed the rainy day fund, robbed the education fund, robbed the road fund, and all why? Because we've allowed Democrats to redefine health care as insurance. We don't believe that insurance that gets worse because it has too many participants and the pay rate is so bad that doctors don't participate in the plan as giving better health care outcomes to Tennesseans. And on top of that, when you consider my opponent just laid it out there brilliantly, that the hospitals who are going out of business in rural areas are going to contribute more money to save themselves, well then why do they need the government money in the first place? Using government health care dollars as an economic development tool, I don't believe is good policy. And what we did this last year is we passed the Rural Hospital Transformation Act, which will give rural hospitals access to economic community development funds for grants to help them retool their business models so that they're better suited for that. The one last thing I'll say is rural hospitals are affected by population migration more than they are needing more government dollars.
Okay, next question, we'll start with Mr. Vaughn. Each day in Tennessee, at least 3 people die of opioid-related overdoses, and statistics show that number is likely to increase. What do you suggest can be done at the state legislature level to help curb this dangerous trend?
First off, I don't know if y'all are awake out there, but did y'all just hear that? 3 people a day. That's more people that die in Tennessee of opioid overdoses than in traffic accidents. That is a crazy stat, and it has such a negative impact on our state. And I'd just like to say, how many out there, how many people know someone who has died of an opioid overdose? It's an insidious problem that's affecting our workforce. It's affecting our criminal justice system. And what we did this past year is we passed a plan called Tennessee Together. And it's only the first step in trying to figure out this problem. We budgeted $30 million in education, in enforcement, and in retooling and regulating the providers of these opioids to new patients. So I won't tell you that we have all the answers. I can tell you that it is squarely within our sights, and it needs to be in the sight of every Tennessean, because we've got to do something, because it's nearing epidemic proportions, and it's going to affect how we go as a state from this point forward.
There's a simple first step we can do. Expand Medicaid. Medicaid would actually provide drug treatment funds to those who need it and can't afford it. And that, because the drug problem affects people based on economics as well. We need Medicaid to expand to be able to provide those money to fight the opioid addiction. Now, they can do a Tennessee Ready where they throw $30 million in, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. You need people to have insurance to be able to go get the drug treatment, and you need that immediately.
Thank you. two more for you guys because we're getting close to the time that we need to be getting out of here. I don't want to keep the staff here too terribly late, so we're going to move on. I actually asked this question earlier of the school board members, and they kind of deflected it to you, as is properly so. But the same question they answered earlier is, there are conflicting studies about appropriate school start times for elementary, middle, and high school aged children. Do you feel Collierville schools have the proper start times, and if not, what would you propose to remedy it?
I would like to review the studies done about this and see whether productivity and performance are affected by a later start time. That would be the key fact. I've read a couple of studies which says a later start time may help productivity of the students and the efficiency of the students. I think we need to look into this and look into all the studies and see what's best for our school system. I think later start times might help with the performance of the students. So if it's going to help with the performance of the students, why not adapt it?
Tim, the representative for District 95 has nothing to do with start times of local LEAs. That's a decision made by local school boards.
I believe the question that went back to the state legislatures was the 10-point grading scale rather than the start times.
Okay. My apologies, I did ask that incorrectly. Would you guys mind addressing the grading scale, not the start times? You're right, I apologize.
Well, first off, the grading scale is recommended by the Tennessee Board of Education, the Commissioner of Education. It's brought to the state legislature in a package. Personally, and I don't sit on the education committee, but if it ever made it to the House floor, I'd vote on it. And frankly, I would vote for a 10-point grading system, and the reason is simple. Private schools in our area rely on a 10-point grading system. If our students are competing with these children for scholarship dollars for their graduate or for their collegiate education, then they should be on a level playing field. Their standardized testing through the ACT and SAT is one method of that, but also these GPAs also play a fact in the scholarship dollars, so I want our students to have every advantage they could.
I would like us to examine the issue closely. You've got to look at how neighboring school districts in different states handle the same issue and whether a 10-point grading scale does help. And I would look at it and say that it may help because, as you said, the 10-point grading scale are used in private schools. Because I went to a private school at Memphis University School, and it prepared us better, this grading scale, for college. And that's what high school sometimes is about, is preparing the children for the future. So if it helps, we should do it.
Thank you. And we're going to wrap up with this one before your closing arguments. And this is a recap of one earlier about how badly leadership is needed in public service position these days. Please give us some examples of leadership positions you currently hold or have held in the past at the community or professional level that indicate you possess the leadership skills necessary to hold public office.